as I said before, this is a IC Topic Zoom chat. The first one we're doing is on niche marketing using Collins' ideas on the hedgehog. And so it comes out of this book, Good to Great. I always want to give recognition to my co-presenter, Laura Keene. She's done a lot with me over the years. She's been a good friend of mine. And when asked if I'd like to take over the pre-conference workshops, I said, not by myself. And Laura's been a fantastic collaborator in that. We can't say anything unless we thank the people who really got this started. And so here's Gail Barrington's book. You can see it there. A lot of the topic I'm going through today is really my own material, but she certainly talks about niche identification in her book and a lot of other things. So I do suggest this book. Beyond today, I have 3 more sessions set for this. June 4th, we're going to be talking about effective marketing approaches, and I'm going to talk about Keith Ferrazzi, and I think I'm going to bring in Dan Pink too, which is Laura's topic, but I felt I need to finish the book before I completely attribute that, because I've been kind of using her material, but I don't know if that's appropriate. We're going to talk about setting your fees, your hourly rates on June 11th, and then I want to talk about tiny habits, and that's a whole new topic that I just introduced last week with the e-study, and I think there's a lot of value in this. And it's a relatively new book, it's a relatively new idea, and I thought that this would be a good thing to talk about, particularly with our newer consultants. I think it's good for everybody, but our newer consultants who are saying, how do I get started? Well, the BJ Fogg's Tiny Habits may be an answer to that. Also want to say June 25th and beyond, I have more material than I know what to do with, and I can give some suggestions, but after 4 weeks of this, let's see where we're at. We'll take stock of what's happening, and maybe people don't want to do it anymore, or maybe they're really interested in certain topics, and then I'll start letting the dialogue go from there. All right, so I'm not going to do the poll question. Here's a nice little quote from you. This quote comes from Amy Germuth. She wrote one of the articles for the 2019 December New Directions for Evaluation specific journal on independent consulting, and she got this quote. I loved it, and I think it's probably pretty accurate. So broadly, let's just talk about who our consultants are before we get into the niche. For the most part, we're talking about, this is straight from the survey we did in 2015, 82% women, 45% PhDs, and they're about 33 to 55 years old. If we were to create a made-for-TV movie, we would have to cast that role of the independent consultant, the new independent consultant, with Mayim Bialik, who I think a lot of you guys know from The Big Bang Theory. And people are consulting because they love the independence, they love the flexibility, and they love, well, getting paid what they're worth, oftentimes more than what they ever made before. But they are worried about the uncertainty of the business, about having too much work, which I think anybody who's been doing this for a while realizes you're worried about not getting enough work, but often what happens is you have too much work. How am I ever going to take a vacation? And all of us, I think even after over 10 years of doing this, and really more than 20 years in consulting, we're always worried about the marketing and the soft skills. So again, all of these quotes are taken straight from our independent consulting survey. If you want to learn a lot more about that survey, we have another article in the New Directions for Evaluation, special edition that came out in December. But today we want to talk about the hedgehog concepts, which is niche identification. And this is a little baby hedgehog that I thought, well, you know, when in doubt, put cute pictures. They may say terrible things about you, but they won't say terrible things about your cute pictures. So I thought I'd throw this out there. The big idea here is this book, Good to Great. So Jim Collins wrote this book. The material is 20 years old at this point, but I don't think I think it's always timely. He looked at different businesses that, for-profit businesses that took that leap from being good, being an average company, to being a fantastic company, and looked at some of the characteristics and how they did it. And I think it provides pretty good ideas for how small businesses, independent consulting practices can do something similar. And he came up with these 6 broad ideas. And he did this based upon a comparison study. I think he has like 20 different great, quote unquote, great businesses, and then found comparison groups and looked at those 2 organizations over a period of time, and looked at what happened with the great businesses and why they were able to become great. And great for him was defined by, you know, fantastic sales and profits and shareholder value and things like that. But at the end of the day, he did find that these businesses were a lot more than just about profits, though they were definitely very profitable. The first thing was, it started with the leaders, the people who started it. And this, I think, is informative for us as individuals, that we have level 5 leadership. Level 5 leadership is a series of levels. So a level 1 leader would be kind of like that boss you had back in high school. Hopefully not my daughter's boss, but that boss that you had at maybe the swimming pool, or at, you know, when you worked at Wendy's, and they played favorites. They couldn't figure out how to work out the schedule. They were just, quote unquote, terrible bosses. That would be a level 1 boss. And then you'd move up to their level 2 boss, maybe, you know, mostly competent. And then you get up to about a level 4 boss. And really, this is the best bosses we have around for the most part. These are the ones who are competent, who are promoted, who do very great things for their businesses, who know how to work with people. But there is a cream of the crop boss, that level 5, the tip of the iceberg, fantastic bosses who are defined by people who are disciplined to the mission, are selfless, but they're just relentless in their approach, right? And I think that's where all best businesses start, with just a level 5 leader, somebody who is committed, but really it's not about them. Their ego is set aside. This box around it. All right, so anyway, the next piece is the first who then what idea. And this is about, once you have that leader, you identify who you want to work with. And what's fascinating about this idea here is that you are putting the people in place before you decide what you want to do. One of the great examples of this is Hewlett Packard. Bill Hewlett and David Packard originally formed together in Silicon Valley in like the 1920s, 1930s. They really didn't know what they wanted to do, but they knew who they wanted to work with. And they brought people in selectively who were just fascinated about electrical engineering. You know, they first started with electronic tests and measurement equipment, and they really got their big break when they were working with Disney in the early days. They didn't know that they wanted to create computers and printers and charge us all ridiculous amounts for toner. They started with just an idea of who they wanted to work with. So Collins uses the idea of a school bus or a bus, and putting the right people on the bus, importantly taking the right people off the bus. And then for the people that you want to work with, shifting them into the right seats to make sure that they're placed in a place where they're going to be the most successful and not unsuccessful. So this is all about personnel. But really, again, the key to all of this is understanding who you want to work with before what you want to do. Your mission follows your people. At that point, you want to confront those brutal facts. Now, I know we're going to get into the hedgehog concept, which is the idea here, but I think it's critical that we talk about some of these bigger pieces so you can see the context of how your niche fits within an ideal business. So you're confronting these brutal facts on who you are and what you want to do. This is the important part where you say, we are not good at X, Y, and Z, but we are good at A, B, and C. And we should be thinking about what we can do that is perfect that's a fit for us. And stop doing the things that we're not any good at. I am asked frequently to write grants. I don't think I'm a very good grant writer. Frankly, I have friends who are great grant writers, and I bring people in. We just finished a grant that my organization was responsible for, but I was not the primary grant writer, and our grant writer will tell you it's a good thing I wasn't. But, you know, I think we did a fantastic job by bringing in the right people to do that. So Walgreens is an example in the book. Walgreens is the original founder of the milkshake and the fountain for, you know, remember soda fountains at the drugstores? Well, at a certain point they said, despite the fact that we are the people who started the milkshake machines, we need to get out of that business. We need to get out of the soda fountain business. That's not where the profit lies for us. So the next piece is the hedgehog concept, which is the identification of the niche, and that's the next slide. But once you've identified your niche, you create a discipline. You focus your attention after your niche without trying to veer off on the sides. I have a friend of mine who is a fantastic educational researcher, and he was inspired when I first started my business that I'd started a business, and he started thinking about how he can start selling weight loss supplements. And I said to him, you know, you're really great at being an educational researcher. You've won lots of proposals. I said, if you're going to spend your time and your energy on something, why don't you do something within your strengths? And so I'm not sure if he listened to me, but the idea was completely in line with this idea of a culture of discipline. Work within who you are, know who you are, work within your strengths. Even outside of your business, I do that all the time with my service to my community through small businesses, my service to my running club, and to my local evaluation association. And then, and only then, do you really start thinking about technology and accelerating your business. So you can see we've got this build up and then a breakthrough. The technology accelerator, maybe in our business, you know, in maybe the corporations, they're talking about perhaps different kinds of massive software and databases and things like that. At one point, maybe 15 years ago, we were talking about going online, right? Creating your online presence. I think within our business as independent consultants, we're often talking about how do we more usefully use Facebook or LinkedIn or Snapchat or any of the other ones. And how do we incorporate those different ideas? Do I create a blog? Do I do more email marketing? To me, that's a technology accelerator. In my business, Goshen Education Consulting, that has been the focus on doing more web-based interactive dashboards and really getting more interactive with the work that we do, and investing time in Tableau and Power BI, and even on a simpler fashion, a very sophisticated Excel interactive dashboards, which our clients love. And I think it underscores our brand and the value we bring to our clients. So let's get into this hedgehog concept, which is the principal piece right here, the middle of it all. The hedgehog concept is based upon a poem by the philosopher Isaiah Berlin. He was reflecting on an old Greek poet who said, the fox knows many things, but the hedgehog knows one thing, one big thing. So the poem goes on to talk about how a hedgehog is very determined in its approach. It moves slowly and determinedly in one direction, whereas the fox jumps around without a lot of focus. And as a business, we need to identify our niche, our hedgehog concept, to focus and move in a determined fashion. And when the hedgehog is attacked, it stops, it falls up like this, and its spines stick out, and it's protected. Whereas the fox is darting around from place to place, and it's not focused at all. So what is a hedgehog concept? And this is the most powerful piece of the book, I think, and it's a piece that has so much relevance beyond just talking about how to start a business. I think you should apply this in all parts of your life. And I talk about it in college classes. I talk about it with nonprofits. I talk about it with my clients. I ask them to what degree can you do the following, find something that hits all three of these circles. First is passion. What is something that you love? If you could get up and do the same thing every day for the rest of your life, what would that be? And so when you're creating your independent consulting practice, you should be thinking about how you can do things that just bring you joy. I know for a lot of us, and that I know through the American Evaluation Association and through evaluation and consulting in general, we like what we do because we're working for a lot of times with organizations that are trying to do good by the world, whatever that means to you. I work with teachers who are trying to teach, you know, fourth graders math. I mean, one thing we've learned is if fourth graders can effectively learn math, they really are likely to do well in math for the rest of their lives. So how important is that? To me, that drives me. I'm passionate about that. That's really interesting stuff. Second circle is, what are you really passionate about? I mean, really good at. What is it something that you can do better than everyone else or most everyone else? And what can you get better at doing, right? And so for me anyway, I was sat down when I was in high school, and I was, you know, kind of like my daughter. I didn't have anything to do. My parents were divorced. I'd go visit my dad out in Baltimore, and he bought me like this this new computer, but it's pretty ancient by today's standards. And he got a VCR tape on how to do spreadsheets. This is way before Microsoft Excel, probably 5 years before it. I was learning Lotus 1, 2, 3. Anyway, so with Lotus 1, 2, 3, I sat there and I figured out how to do it. I mean, it was kind of boring or whatever, but it was something better than, you know, watching Ghostbusters for the 15th time, or probably 50th time at that point. We watched it every day. But I learned that, and as a result, I had the early foundations for being able to do data analysis. And so I've gone on to do a lot of different data analysis. And it was never necessarily something I planned to do, but I'm really good at it. If somebody gives me a data set, I can break it down pretty quickly into usable information. And we've gotten even better at processing those data and getting that out there for people to make decisions in a very, very quick turnaround. And then thirdly, what drives your economic engines? Where's the money? Show me the money, right? And if you can find something that you do that fits all three of these circles, in evaluation, I mean, this is complicated because things are ever changing. I'm an educational evaluation. And for as long as I can remember, the economic engines have surrounded STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And sometimes we throw in arts and even agriculture, but that's another story. But that STEM or STEAM concept is where people are really inspired. And there's good reason for that, because we know as a country, as a developing, continuing to develop economy, the STEM disciplines are really going to fuel and grow our economy. And so there's reason to continue to support those. There are, about 10 years ago, there was a lot of funds for teaching American history. So that's dried up. American history, I love, but there's not room for me to be a program evaluator around K-12 American history anymore. So some examples of how you could find yourself in one of these circles or two of these circles, you're going to find that it's not probably a sustainable idea. So let's say you're passionate about art and you are really good at it, but there's no money there. Then that's not a sustainable profession for you, or in this situation, evaluation. But you can be really passionate about it, you can be really good at it, but if people aren't there to fund your work, then there's no room for that. If you're really good at something and there's a lot of money in it, this is kind of like a corporate lawyer, that's the way I think about it. From my understanding, a lot of corporate lawyers really hate what they do, but they're really good at it because it's a specialized discipline and there's a lot of money in it, but it's hardly sustainable and they just can't stand their jobs. It's kind of the golden handcuffs idea. And then I guess there's people who are really passionate about doing things where there's lots of money, but they're not any good at it. Well, that's called unemployment, because nobody's going to hire you to do those sorts of things if you're not very good at it. So that's the basic idea on the hedgehog concept. You want to identify those three things. So for me, talking about what Goshen Education Consulting is, I'm really passionate about both K-12 and higher education. I actually have a PhD in the higher education side of things, and that's where I kind of grew up professionally anyway. But I'm passionate about just the educational enterprise. I'm really good at data analysis. and report writing. And there's money around STEM education. So that's really why I do a lot of that work. But recently, there's also been a lot of opportunities for teacher shortage and understanding educator shortage. And so we've branched out. We're doing a lot of support for the state of Illinois and different organizations in the state of Illinois around surveying around those ideas. And frankly, I think we're going to start branching into more understanding for the impacts of coronavirus COVID-19 ideas, which I think are going to be a logical extension of what we do. So the idea here is to focus your attention amongst those three circles. So this all exists within the flywheel concept. So you'll see here the flywheel circles around it. So as we think about this, we want to have that discipline. I talked about the culture of discipline, that you would focus your attention towards your niche. So I have a definition of a flywheel here, and I've read this book a couple of times, and I know that it's a mechanical device that's specifically designed to efficiently store rotational energy. We have one in our cars, but I still don't know what that means. What I do understand is Ferris wheels. If you've ever been to Chicago and maybe Pier, you know, they have that big Ferris wheel. So the way I think about a flywheel is a Ferris wheel. And if my job is to turn that Ferris wheel, I know that the only way to turn that Ferris wheel is to focus my attention towards just one rung and pushing at it. And so if the effectiveness of my business is the speed at which the Ferris wheel spins, I know if I need to show up each day and just grab hold of one of those rungs and just pull with all my might and just try and get it to move. And I know that just by moving it just a little bit, it will start to move. But I keep consistently focusing my attention on that Ferris wheel, and it begins to move. And so here I am, it's starting to spin a little bit, but as I continue to show up day after day, it spins and it spins and it spins faster. And at the point that we all have seizures. So I'm going to go to the next quote. And so I'm going to complete this this little lecture today by talking about Nikki Bowman, who put this quote also in Amy Gurman's article. So in order to say yes, we need to be unafraid to say no. And I think that speaks really to the idea of sticking to your niche, having focus, and understanding